Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are taking on something truly monumental, and honestly, it's profoundly terrifying.
It really is.
This is a piece of work that absolutely demands a full narrative analysis, not just, a casual listening session.
Not at all.
We are doing a deep dive into the comprehensive review package for the new album, Opera in Darkness by Drk The Gore Session. And I have to stress, this isn't just listening to music.
No, it's engaging with a fully realized, multi-layered chronicle. I think it's crucial to establish the scope of this right away for you, our listener.
Please.
This is so far beyond a standard heavy metal album, or even a typical concept album. It was released on January 1st, 2026, and it's billed as a dark opera.
And that's not just a fancy name.
Not in the slightest.
Right.
It functions as one continuous, incredibly detailed and cohesive story. The music, the lyrics, the very dense liner notes, and all the supplementary texts we analyzed, they all fuse together.
Into what exactly?
Into a single literary document, the fetid chronicle of Baroness Lysandra Vain.
And that's our mission today, to unpack that synthesis. We need to explore the chronology, the deep philosophical roots, and the chilling operational details of her transformation.
It's quite a journey.
It is. She goes from this disillusioned 17th century English aristocrat to a force of absolute cosmic destruction. It's a story of total anti-cosmic treason. We are charting the downfall of reality itself, all told through one woman's calculated rage.
And we really have to acknowledge the architect behind this edifice. Drk The Gore Session is, for all intents and purposes, a one-man experimental metal project.
Right, from Hong Kong. Started back in 2003, I believe.
That's the one. The core figure is Scarlet Vincent. And when we say he's the core figure, he is credited for literally every single aspect.
You're not kidding. The music, the incredibly intricate lyrics, the production, guitar, bass, keyboards.
And all the vocals. It all comes from him.
I think the fact that this entire dense, layered concept comes from a singular vision, it really explains the overwhelming, uncompromising thematic consistency.
It has to.
There are no competing voices here. It's a perfectly focused tunnel of horror.
It truly is. The album itself is a 12-track dark opera, and significantly, the package we reviewed included an entire audiobook version of the complete Tenebrous Chronicle.
That detail is so important, isn't it?
It underscores that the narrative is not secondary to the music. The narrative is the raison d'etre. The music is almost the accompaniment to her confession.
And if you just look at the genre tags, you get a sense of the sheer ambition here.
Oh, yeah.
Black metal, black and death metal, symphonic black metal, dark fusion metal, and heavy metal.
It's an aggressive synthesis, for sure.
Yeah.
Which kind of matches the ambition of the Baroness herself, who is, attempting to synthesize humanity with the absolute void.
The sound has to be that complex, doesn't it, to carry such a heavy narrative load?
It does. You need the aggression of death metal, you need that ritualistic feel of black metal, and then you need the scope of the symphonic elements to really convey the scale of a cosmic severance ritual that spans like 12 chapters of a book.
And just a small detail, but one that definitely sets the mood. The album is purchasable for $6.66 or more.
A little on the nose, maybe, but it works.
It's a deliberate nod, isn't it? It establishes the price of entry into this chronicle of blaspheme.
But before we even get into Lysandra's story, her birth, her marriage, her crimes, we have to confront something profoundly unusual about this source material.
The metatextual warning.
Exactly. The chronicle is prefaced by an explicit, almost desperate caution from the scrivener who first recorded the text.
Okay, let's break this down, because this isn't your standard horror fiction framing device. This is presented as a genuine danger.
The source material insists, flat out, that the chronicle is a precise record of a cosmic treason, and the scrivener's fear is palpable. You can feel it in the writing.
And that fear stems from the belief that they weren't just transcribing a memoir, right?
Not at all. They insisted that the text functions as a deliberate vessel for the corrupted power of the Liber Azerate, which is the forbidden text Lysandra discovers later.
So the words themselves are active.
They claim the words are not inert ink. They are a vessel of the woman's soul, bound by ritual.
Wait, so this isn't just a gimmick. How does the source material justify turning a text into a, quote, vessel of corruption?
It's all explained through the final ritual. The last act of Lysandra's treason actually binds a portion of her transcendent essence to the written account of her actions.
To ensure her anti-gospel survives her mortal life.
Precisely. The scrivener included what they call dire counsel, warning specifically against speaking key phrases aloud
Why?
because they're precise instruments of corruption.
Wow. That turns the simple act of listening to this album or reading the liner notes into an act of metaphysical risk.
It does. The scrivener specifically cautions you, the reader, not to read the work alone in the dark.
And the reason for that is just chilling.
It asserts that the Baroness's spirit is parasitic and seeks quiet solitude for the exchange of souls.
So the ultimate lesson here, the thing that governs how we have to interpret the rest of this chronicle, is that every act of reading is an act of invocation.
And you are risking your sanity, and perhaps more dramatically, the eternal living part of your soul to the Baroness of Chaos.
That is a heavy, uncomfortable bar to set. But it also sets the expectation that we are engaging with an active threat, a literary artifact detailing a successful, cold-blooded, anti-cosmic treason.
It certainly makes this a different kind of review, doesn't it?
It does. We are now engaging with a cursed manuscript. So with that warning hanging over us, let's turn the clock back to 17th century England and establish the physical and psychic incubator for all of this. Athelred Hall.
The location in the Essex marshes is not arbitrary at all. It is paramount to the entire story.
The environment is inseparable from her destiny, then.
Absolutely. The hall, the Vain family seat, is described as less of an ancestral manor and more a cyclopean monument to misplaced architecture. It's late Tudor, but it's built over an older, far more unsettling geometry.
So the architecture itself is a sign of a fundamental structural flaw. It wasn't just built in a bad location, it was built incorrectly, maybe even intentionally, over something ancient and terrible.
Precisely. The local folk maintain that the ancient base of the hall wasn't built on stable stone, but on bleeding out soil.
Bleeding out soil, what does that even mean?
It sounds like the ground itself was alive and wounded. It demanded endless toil just to maintain the foundations, symbolically linking the Vain family line to this wicked, restless spirit and unseen chains binding them to the ground.
So the physical decay and this inherent instability, it reflects the family's own, their solitary madness and doomed ambition.
Exactly. This house is a psychic pressure cooker. It's described as a shrine of petrified night, just heavy with the promise of ruin.
And Lysandra is born into this. She breathes air that is heavy with the claim of the Void's command from the very beginning. The external setting just perfectly mirrors the internal rot.
It primes her. The source material talks about the trauma of the bloody civil wars, which were still recent history, being displayed on rotting tapestries inside the hall. She is surrounded constantly by historical, spiritual, and structural failure.
So let's transition to the woman herself. Born under a gibbous moon in 1655, the narrative presents her as the unnatural bloom of the marshes.
A beautiful woman with a cold, vast lack at her very core.
Her physical description really reinforces that thematic duality of the work, doesn't it?
It really does. She possessed a beauty that was described as inherently wrong. It was fragile, pale, and it concealed what the chronicle calls an amorphous and cold psychic center.
And her eyes.
Her sight was described as glacial blue, holding an ancient scorn for the world she was forced to inhabit.
She certainly wasn't a typical child.
Not even close. She didn't play with frivolous things. Her youth was spent in the charnel dust of the family crypt.
And that's where she learned to decode the archaic grief of the dead.
Yes. It was there, among the tombs, that her aristocratic melancholy transformed into a transcendent, terrifying clarity.
And that clarity was informed by whispers.
Right, and not common garden variety ghosts. These were the eldritch pronouncements of the 11-fold current.
Which is the source material's term for the destructive, anti-cosmic forces seeking to dissolve the laws of creation.
She was receiving philosophical instruction from the abyss itself, from childhood.
And this is where the philosophical groundwork is truly laid for her. She developed a worldview that just rejected the basic tenets of her entire society. She didn't see the cosmos as God's logical domain.
No, instead she perceived it as a temporary, flimsy scrim, a poorly woven tapestry disguising the infinite squamous horror that truly governed existence.
That one realization is the foundation of her profound active nihilism.
It is. Because if the entire visible universe is just a cheap cover-up for something fundamentally awful and chaotic, then all human effort, faith, morality, love, architecture, it's not just futile. It's an insult to the truth.
So if she saw the cosmos as this flimsy scrim, what does the music tell us about the nature of the void behind it? Is it truly horror, or is it liberation, as she comes to see it?
For the standard human, it's pure squamous horror, something that destroys sanity. But for Lysandra, it is absolute cold truth.
And she finds her conviction for this by studying the Essex marshes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The slow decay in the tar pits, watching life just futilely resist. She saw the local folks' tireless efforts against the inevitable sea as utterly pointless.
She concluded that life's work was frail, the future was unsound.
And that observation, that the struggle of existence is pointless and that the sea will inevitably claim all human pride, that becomes her first lesson. Her nihilism is applied not by depression, but by an intellectual conviction that existence itself is fundamentally flawed and structurally weak.
So it moves her past simple melancholy.
And into a targeted mission. If the scaffolding of reality is unsound, then her next actions are just logical steps to accelerate the inevitable collapse. She sees any attempt at life or traditional order as a living lie.
This conviction then directly informs her next major action, the purely transactional marriage to Baron Lucius Vain.
This was not a move of passion, not at all. It was one of strategic necessity for her dark studies.
A cold exchange.
Completely. Baron Vain was a soldier, preoccupied with the vain, pathetic war of the time, the Succession Wars. He needed an heir, and he needed gold to fund his mortal ambitions.
And Lysandra needed two things: libraries and solitary peace.
The two things she needed to pursue her forbidden research.
Their union was fleeting, to say the least. It lasted only a single week.
Right. He found her marble cold, gave her a quick kiss on her frozen cheek, and just left for the glory of war.
And his absence was, ironically, the single greatest gift she could have possibly received.
It really was. The source material underlines that contrast so well. He departs with shouting, plume, and sword, seeking a meaningless mortal throne.
While his departure removed the final mortal lord from her life, granting her the complete solitude required for cosmic treason.
But the marriage wasn't without its complication. The ensuing pregnancy forced a period of conventional existence upon her.
Which she despised.
Utterly. Lysandra viewed the sacred state with a scientist's cold eye. She saw the pregnancy as a biological sin, a temporary commitment to the flawed structure of life, necessary only to secure her position and her continued access to the hall and all of its secrets.
And then came the devastating catalyst that completed her philosophical break.
The stillness of the cradle.
The infant was stillborn. It arrived with waxen stillness, cold porcelain complete. No cry, no vital beat.
And this stillbirth, it wasn't the tragic end of her hopes. It was the ultimate, irrefutable proof she had been seeking all along.
The absence of life, that tiny, silent corpse, confirmed all of her suspicions.
She stares at the infant, realizing the effort of all life was pointless and alone. The corpse became her single sign that life was built upon a cosmic weak design.
So why does a stillbirth prove this cosmic weak design to her so specifically? How does her vast celestial rage differ from just standard grief?
Well, it's the difference between human sorrow and metaphysical outrage. Standard grief acknowledges the loss of something valuable within the existing structure. Lysandra's reaction is to see the stillbirth as a structural defect.
A bug in the system.
A sign that the underlying architecture of creation is so poor that it cannot even sustain its own simplest component, a newborn life. This didn't bring her grief. It brought absolute targeted hate.
So she traded that mortal personal pain for vast celestial rage, concluding that this tragedy was a sign from a false Christian god of a pointless, cruel design.
She was galvanized. She wasn't seeking comfort or revenge. She was seeking the anti-gospel to defy all structure, law, and fate.
And significantly, the infant was buried in the crypt of the unbaptized.
A place consecrated not by any homely ritual, but by deep despair. This final resting place was deliberately outside the realm of holy grace, and it set the physical stage for the next crucial discovery, the instruction manual for cosmic destruction.
So Lysandra now has the perfect motive, this absolute proof of creation's futility, and she has the necessary solitude provided by the absent Lord. She is ready to find the method.
And this takes us to Act 1 and the discovery in the crypt of the unbaptized.
She was driven not by sorrow, but by a cold intellectual quest.
A quest for the ancient truth concealed by cold despair. And beneath the dust and grime of the crypt, she finds a secret passage. And there it is, the text that mocks the law of time, the Liber Azerate.
Bound chillingly in Serkenhide. This is the anti-gospel.
It is.
So what's actually in this forbidden text? The source describes its language as a script of mathematics cruel.
And that phrase, mathematics cruel, is so key.
Why?
It elevates the treason beyond mere magic or devil worship. This is about structural engineering. The text outlines the flaws in the demiurges, the false creator God's design for the universe in terms of geometry and number.
It provides the blueprint for cosmic severance.
Detailing the law of severance and night.
And it names the specific energy source she needs to harness.
Yes. The chaotic energy she must harness is called the Tenebrous fire, described as the internal chaos deep inside all matter.
And the key to breaking the cosmic veil, that flimsy scrim, is through ritual means involving energy drawn from life violently shed.
And there it is, the central operational requirement, the Scarlet Harvest.
And the book also identifies the physical nexus point, confirming that the hall was built over a pre-existing curse.
Exactly. Beneath the central hearth of Athelred Hall, where the fire seldom glowed, she identifies the primal rock, carved with symbols of wicked art. This location is where the power needed to tear the corrupted divine weave was already flowing. The hall is literally a ritualistic device built over the natural, ancient altar of chaos.
That's a massive amount of occult knowledge to suddenly uncover. How long does the Chronicle suggest she spent mastering this blasphemous science before she, moved to the operational phase?
Well, Chapter 6, The Scholar of the Tenebrous Fire, implies a period of intense solitary study. Months, maybe even a year.
Where she moves from discovery to absolute mastery.
Yes. Her rage becomes purely intellectual. She focuses on the cruel equations required to break what she views as the living lie of God's flawed law. She becomes a high-level theoretician of destruction.
She transforms the void from a place of dread into a concept of liberation.
She does. She sees the void not as some chaotic end, but as a cleansing force where all things must be bled. This is the ultimate nihilistic trade, exchanging the sorrow and futility of our mortal existence for the scope of total cosmic dissolution. She becomes the cold high priestess taking the scholar's vow.
And by embracing her destiny as the Scarlet Vessel, every subsequent human interaction becomes a calculated step in her treason against the true order of the void.
Her depravity is not weakness. It is devotion to this new law. She is here to enact the anti-God's will, to corrupt, shatter, and violently reclaim the souls that are tethered to the false light.
The ultimate goal is to become the sole patron of the cult of the anti-cosmic terror.
And that takes us into Act 2, Calculated Treason and the Scarlet Harvest. This is where the theoretical horror becomes operationalized into murder.
Which requires a flawless social mask.
Absolutely requires it. She assumes the role of the portrait of calculated treason. She wears somber black silk, and the source calls this her true battle gear, elegant and devastating.
Playing the strong, quiet widow while concealing the cosmic rage beneath domestic charms and measured grace.
And she maintains this facade with chilling self-control. She manages the estate, arranging rents and farms, hosting weekly dances of formal, measured grace, all while calculating the deaths of her guests.
Her beauty and title are the perfect snare.
Her method and her targets are specific. She forms a wicked circle in the guest wing of the hall, attracting the young, the proud, and the vain.
Those with a specific kind of mortal pride.
Exactly. They were drawn by rumors of the night, seeking libertine philosophy and wit and, subtle sin.
They sought illicit bliss, believing pleasure reigned.
But the Baroness was not offering pleasure. She was hunting. This was the romantic depravity of the guest wing, as purpose was strictly the Scarlet Harvest.
The Chronicle makes it so clear that the murders were a structural necessity. It was almost a form of anti-taxation.
She drew the blood with care, a measured, perfect flow, concentrating the profane energy required to break the cosmic law. It wasn't about pleasure or greed or revenge. Each death was a component.
A necessary sum.
To fuel the anti-gospel's plan. They were fuel cells for the cosmic engine.
This mechanical, cold approach is just perfectly captured in the intense, archaic language used in the lyrics of tracks like Dark Angels Dressed in Crimson and Into the Fall.
Yes, and the source uses Old English terms which link her actions back to the ancient rooted evil of the hall. She sees her beauty as the prelude to the world's fall. But look at the description of intimacy.
It's chilling.
Her every kiss, a final fatal rune carved upon the Banhu's body of her lover, releasing their essence to fuel the esplaga of the wrathful chaos.
So why the use of these archaic terms like Banhu's for body and esplaga for, warplay, destruction?
It absolutely does both. The use of Old English or Anglo-Saxon terms like Banhu's, which literally means bone house, is a rhetorical device used in that period to evoke doom and ancient, fatalistic Germanic poetry.
It connects the 17th century aristocratic setting to an older, deeper, pre-Christian fatalism.
Exactly. And by calling her Embrace Eastplaga, a term often used for battle or destructive games,
Yeah.
the source reframes the intimacy of murder as a precise, sacred act of war against creation itself.
In the track Into the Fall, the lyrics are devastatingly precise about the severance. She is leading a victim down the staircase, noting their mortal love, a flaw I craved so petty and distinguished.
And when she presses the ritual blade, the victim's gasp, a childish prayer reversed, is heard as a sweet melody undone, marking the anti-cosmic victory. The severance is precise. The bloodshed is the key that breaks the connection to the human world outside.
So the energy collected strengthens the 11-fold current, achieving an irreversible anti-spiritual lull.
Which is the mechanical confirmation that the anti-gods approve of the gruesome, gory trick. She is gathering profane energy, becoming this single, beautiful woman wielding the keys to total dissolution.
She understands that the energy of a soul violently separated from the light is far more potent than one that passes naturally.
This is not arbitrary violence. It is a structural necessity. It's a reverse sacrament designed to rip the very thread of creation. She has calculated exactly how many souls and of what type vain, proud, steeped in subtle sin are required to perform the final ritual.
The scale of the bloodshed in the guest wing is shocking, but it only serves one function: to accumulate the necessary power for the coming sonic and cosmic breach.
And with the Scarlet Harvest complete, the profane energy is sealed, and the covenant is ready to be enacted.
Which moves us to Act 3. Lysandra now has the fuel, but she needs the final structural keys to tear the cosmos. And shockingly, this involves sound, the dance of the 11-fold current.
This is the moment the title, Opera in Darkness, ceases to be a metaphor and becomes a literal ritual requirement. The final key was not a traditional chant or incantation,
It was dissonance, not song, but music, anti-divine.
and the specific instrument chosen is archaic and heavy, the viola da gamba.
Why this instrument? I mean, it's a 17th century aristocratic instrument known for its deep, rich, yet melancholic tones. How does Scarlet Vincent recontextualize it as a weapon?
The choice is just brilliant because it roots the high cosmic horror right back in the 17th century aristocratic decay we were just talking about. The viola da gamba, with its resonating chamber and heavy strings, provided the acoustic intensity she needed.
But the music itself wasn't attuned for human ears.
Not at all. The notes were structural equations and calculated vectors fired into the void, embodying the 11-fold current's cold command.
So she's performing geometric sound, a weaponized dissonance intended to attack the foundational laws of the universe. The vibrations aren't for auditory pleasure, they're precise instruments of corruption.
Echoing the scrivener's warning about speaking key phrases aloud.
Exactly. The sound is a focused weapon, directed toward that physical nexus point, the primal rock, the altar cold and deep, beneath the central hearth.
The vibrations literally woke the sleeping curse and made the entire house vibrate with dread. The hall transforms in real time, the floorboards becoming a wicked stage, awaiting the final act.
And that structural sound is the last preparatory element. The Chronicle notes that the music was fulfilled the moment the current was alive and secured. The time for theory and preparation had passed.
The stage was set for the overwhelming mental and spiritual rupture that follows in the chapter titled simply Madness.
And the narrative presents madness not as a collapse of sanity, but as the final path to ultimate clarity.
Yes, the prologue to Act 3 frames it as the moment when the veil is glass and sanity's a word that frail, blind sheep not vain have ever heard.
This is the ultimate philosophical climax for her. Her mind is deliberately ripped and torn, but this allows her to see the non-Euclidean truth lodged in my head. This implies that the laws of Euclidean geometry, the very structure of our visible universe, are themselves a prison.
Well, if reason is the tool the demiurge, the false creator God used to build the gilded cage of creation, then reason must go to die. She laughs at fear and worships the illogical, embracing the glorious screaming truth that lies beyond structure.
The lyrics of the track Madness capture this reversal perfectly. The world melts down to chaos, fluid and unbound. I live within the moment where the reason goes to die. I am the conduit of absolute demise.
So the psychological breakdown is the ultimate liberation of the spirit of the Banhus. By rejecting her mortal self, she achieves true severance. She views the creation of life, including her own child's stillbirth, as brutal and defiled, and she welcomes the cosmic loneliness of being free from that creation.
She claims ownership of the terrifying peace.
Which leads directly into the final union, depicted lyrically in When Darkness Is Your Lover. If she is rejecting all mortal structures, this union has to be equally anti-mortal.
It's a terrifying metaphysical devotion.
It is. The darkness is cold and vast, the only union that is built to last. He's described not as a demon, but as the tearing of the fabric, the silent, screaming logic of the gale.
And she yields the empty vessel, her body, her name, her identity, becoming the bride of chaos.
The description of this union is highly charged. It calls it a squamous intimacy that is cast from spheres beyond the paltry waking dream.
Squamous, that's such a Lovecraftian term. It implies a scaly, non-human ancient horror.
But here it describes the union. The level breaks the walls where the cosmos claims control and plants his ace plaga, that chaotic, destructive warplay within her soul. She achieves her final, terrifying, unholy apotheosis.
So Lysandra ceases to be a human woman. She becomes the Baroness of Chaos, the very entity she served. The price of her liberation is yielding her mortal presence and name to the anti-cosmic flow.
Which brings us to the ultimate culmination of the entire narrative. Chapter 12, an end in blood, consummation upon stone. All the preparation, the nihilism, the harvest, the geometric sound, it all leads to this single, devastating ritual climax.
The stage is set. Lysandra, having transcended shame and self, stands upon the altar rock where the 11-fold current pulses. But she still needs one final, crucial sacrifice to breach the veil.
And the source is quite specific about the victim here. It's a soul of simple worth. Not one of the vain aristocrats from the guest wing, but a simple, pure soul, chosen as the perfect counterweight to the weight of the anti-gospel's power.
The final necessary counterbalance to break the living earth.
The act itself, performed with the ceremonial dagger, is described as sharp, precise, and swiftly done. The denial is absolute.
And then the energy pours out a flood of perfect might, and the anti-cosmic terror opens wide and deep. This is the moment of total structural failure.
The narrative emphasizes the devastating scope of it. The universal law dissolves into the night. The structure breaks. The stars descend and shatter bright. Every atom screams as order crashes and falls.
And Lysandra transcends her mortal shell, standing on the stone, triumphant and ice cold. She is no longer human.
She is the Baroness of Chaos, and the victorious Azerate, consumed by the final, fatal, perfect kiss of the abyss.
The opera concludes, and the chronicle states that only chaos now forevermore transcends. She actually succeeded.
She did.
That is a staggering conclusion. The calculated aristocratic blood ritual resulting in the structural destruction of all reality. So, what does the chronicle tell us remains after such a definitive act of cosmic severance?
What remains is a profound, active stillness. Athelred Hall didn't explode or burn down. Instead, it fell into a profound stillness, preserved as a vessel now complete.
A monument to the blaspheme.
The essence of the void just settled into the bricks, ensuring the location remained permanently infected by the new chaos.
And the physical relics Lysandra left behind. They are perhaps the most potent and chilling evidence of her severance from humanity.
They are the signature of her treason. Upon the altar rock, she left her human cost, her severed head, and it gives the dates: born October 1st, 1655, crossed over on Halloween, October 31st, 1680, and her left hand, which lay beside the ritual dagger. The source notes that these were the only parts of flesh she claimed as truly known.
That's such a powerful image of total self-rejection. She only claimed ownership of the parts of her body that she actively used for the treason, her mind and the hand that wielded the dagger. The rest of her mortal vessel was utterly discarded as irrelevant.
The other silent witnesses were the instruments of the ritual, the ceremonial dagger and the veil de gamba.
The source of the geometric sound.
The instrument stood silent, its music fulfilled, the anti-gospel song sung before the dawn. The silence itself declared the collapse of structure and the end of order, now replaced by the currents.
And what about the absent lord, Baron Lucius Vain, the man whose abandonment enabled this entire cosmic apocalypse?
His story just dissolved into utter insignificance. The chronicle dismisses him completely. His spirit went unknown, his memory consumed by the greater night.
So the military folly he pursued was utterly destroyed.
Probably just forgotten by history. The source material states pointedly that his absence was the necessary gift Lysandra used well. He was a pointless pawn, removed from final sight. His end for mortal thrones was completely eclipsed by her claim of the empty void.
So Hall became a preserved shrine harboring the new law of the void. But after a climax like that, you'd expect silence. Yet the epilogue tells us the story didn't end with Lysandra's transcendence.
No, it continued to bleed into the world for 2 more centuries. Ethelred Hall remained cursed, Subsequent Vain masters throughout the 18th and 19th centuries met a continuous grim pattern of ill fate,
Suspicious deaths, suicides, unsolved murders.
all tied to severe, unexplained psychological distress caused by the building itself.
And the haunting was malevolent, often characterized by persistent rumors of those dissonant chords from the viola da gamba.
And the cold scent of sulfur and iron clinging to the air. The physical structure was not just a symbol, it remained an active weapon of chaos.
So eventually, the community's desperation reached a critical point.
It did. In the mid-19th century, following a final gruesome sequence of events that the local council could no longer ignore, they made the unprecedented decision to purchase Ethelred Hall and systematically destroy it,
They pulled down every single stone.
hoping to physically eradicate the source of the evil that had corrupted the region's history for so long.
And this systematic dismantling brings us right back to the central tension posed by the scrivener at the very beginning.
Is this Gothic fiction, or the unholy confession of a noblewoman who tore a hole in the fabric of reality?
That division is the core of the Chronicle's enduring power, isn't it? And the terrifying genius of Scarlet Vincent's project.
It is. The final text insists that the destruction of the hall was futile because Lysandra's cold spirit now lives within the volume itself, parasitic and fast.
So even the physical destruction of the site wasn't enough to contain her influence.
No, she is controlling what we know, ready to claim the simple souls who read it. She is the master of Ethelred, guiding the narrative from beyond the veil. The manuscript isn't just a record of the treason.
It is the lingering effect of the treason.
Exactly.
We have traced the complete narrative arc of the opera in darkness, a journey of calculated treason, fueled by a perfect cold nihilism, from aristocratic ennui to cosmic apotheosis. It is a frighteningly detailed and philosophically consistent chronicle.
It's a masterful meditation on chaos and structure, and it uses the form of heavy metal opera to convey a complex, anti-theological statement about the inherent flaws in creation. It is a work that demands you, the listener, engage with its philosophical density, not just its musical aggression.
Which leaves us with the final provocative thought for you, listener, something for you to consider as you process this deep dive. The Chronicle concludes by stating that after the severance was complete, the world outside continued, believing it was free, not knowing chaos reigned in its totality. If the severance was truly successful, and the universal law completely dissolved by the final act, what essential structural piece of reality did Baroness Lysandra Vain sacrifice and trade for her ultimate cold freedom, allowing the rest of us to continue believing